Om Sadashivasamarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Namo Brahmadibhyo Brahma Vidya Sampradaya Kartribhyo Vamsha Rishibhyo Namo Gurubhyaha. So we finished the second chapter in the last class. With that we have completed Madhu Kanda. The Brhadaranyaka Upanishad itself has 6 chapters and it is divided into 3 kandas having 2 chapters each. So the first 2 chapters are called Madhu Kanda because the famous Madhu Vidya which we just now saw, correct, in the 5th Brahmana of the 2nd chapter, Madhu Vidya is there. So I think it is called Madhu Kanda. Then the 3rd and 4th chapter are called Muni Kanda because here, in fact, the 3rd chapter is entirely based on what Yajnavalkya is debating. So the 3rd chapter itself, you can see here 9 Brahmanas are there. The first Brahmana, where a story is there. Janaka is having a yajna and then he has called all the Vaidikas from Kuru and Panchala Desha, like that the story starts. And then he wants to have Vidya, Jnanam, and what better way than to have a discussion with all the Jnanis who have gathered there, correct? So he wanted to have a debate amongst themselves and also find who is the greatest amongst them. And he wanted to offer a lot of dana also to them, a big price, okay, in the form of 1,000 cows with gold also tied onto the horns of the cows. So like this, the 3rd chapter starts and Yajnavalkya then is actually debating with the others who are present there and he wins each one of them. So each Brahmana here, the 9 Brahmanas, if you see, are all Yajnavalkya's debate with others. And there is also a lady debater here called Gargi. And she is known as Brahmavadini Gargi. And in fact, she is the one who debates with Yajnavalkya 2 times. That's why 8 people are debating with Yajnavalkya, but 9 Brahmanas are there. That is because Gargi does it twice. Gargi Vachaknavi, she was called. And in this, again, the first 3 Brahmanas are actually not Brahma Vidya. But later on, we see that Brahma Vidya also is there, mainly. Then the 4th chapter is really having a lot of interesting and important vakyas which always are quoted by Bhashyakara also. So that also we will see. So these 2 are called Muni Kanda or Yajnavalkya Kanda because Yajnavalkya is the teacher here. Yajnavalkya features everywhere in these 2 chapters. And the 4th chapter also has 6 Brahmanas. You can see here. The 4th chapter has 6 Brahmanas. 3rd one has 9 Brahmanas. So totally 15 Brahmanas are there in this Kanda. Then the 5th and 6th chapter are called Khila Kanda. Khila means more like a compendium or an appendix. So there miscellaneous topics are all dealt with. In fact, some of them are not even Brahma Vidya, how to get a son, things like that. Okay. And also some upasanas are all there. And even the Maitreyi Brahmanam is repeated again. So there is a Khila Kanda which is having the 5th and 6th chapter. So this is the Brhadaranyaka. The 2nd chapter we completed last week. I thought maybe I'll give you a small summary of the different Brahmanas in the 2nd chapter also. So the 2nd chapter actually started with the Ajatashatru Brahmana. The Ajatashatru Brahmana is where the Brahmana Balaki, Dripta Balaki he is called. Okay, Balaki goes to this king Ajatashatru, Kashi king, and he wants to teach Brahman to the king. Okay, he thought that he knew Brahman, and he started teaching the king. King also was very open, and he wanted to learn. But actually, the king knew more than the Brahmana. So the Brahmana was only teaching Saguna Brahma. So in fact, if you see the first Brahmana in the 2nd chapter, the Dripta Balaki goes and says, I will teach you Brahmate Bravani, like that he says, I will teach you this Brahman. And as soon as he said that, Balaki was given 1,000 gold coins, I think. And then he starts teaching, but he's only talking about Saguna Brahma and different upasanas. And then in each of those cases, already Ajatashatru knew about that, and he even says what will be the phala. Like this, you can see it keeps on going. Then after 15 Vakyas here, that much only Balaki knows. And then he asks, is there anything more? Okay, can you say anything more about this Brahman? Then Balaki doesn't know. Then he says, I will teach you Brahman. Okay. So, Brahma me vakshyati swa nyapayishyami, all that he says. Although it is pratilomam, he says. Normally, Brahmanas teach and Kshatriyas learn. But here it is the other way around. It is not normal, but if you have to learn something, then it is okay. This is also fine. Although it is not normal, but it is allowed. So that is shown in the Upanishad itself. And then he takes his hand and walks with him and goes on, actually wakes up a sleeping person. And then through that, he is teaching that how Brahman is Nirguna, and only the individual awareness which is actually manifest in the body mind sense complex in the different states, it comes and goes, but Brahman as the consciousness is always there irrespective of any state. So that's what he is trying to show here. The states come and go, the one who identifies with the states like the waker, dreamer, all that also comes and goes, but through all this there is an invariable presence, that is Brahman, that is Atma also. Okay, so that he teaches Ajatashatru through an analysis of Swapna and deep sleep. So this is the first Brahmana, and finally Ajatashatru also says that this Brahman is Satyasya Satyam. You can see here. Tasya Upanishad, he says. Upanishad means secret name here. So Brahman as a secret name. What is that? Satyasya Satyam. And then he explains that secret also. What is this Satyasya Satyam means what? He says Prana Vai Satyam. Prana is Satyam. And even this Brahman is Satyam of Prana also. That's why it is Tesham Yesha Satyam. Esha Brahma, it is Satyam of Prana also. So then this Upanishad in the next two Brahmanas, it goes into explaining this Satyasya Satyam, this Upanishad. In the process, in fact, it talks about, it gives for Prana, there is this is called Shishu Brahmana actually, the second Brahmana. That is because the Prana is called Shishu here. Prana is given a Upanishad or secret name called Shishu. And how a calf is tied, using that as an analogy, this Prana is talked about here. In fact, Prana is shown as both the Sukshma Sharira and the Sthula Sharira. All of them put together is called Prana here. Sthula Sukshma Sharira Sanghata. So this is the Shishu Brahmanam. And then third Brahmana was called Murta Murta Brahmanam, where this Satya, the word is there, correct? Now that word itself is looked upon differently. Sat and Tyat together form Satya there. And Sat means that which is tangible, that which has a form, correct? Murta. And Tyat means that which is intangible, formless, Amurta. So here this both Murta and Amurta are shown as Satyam, which is another name for Prana. So Prana is at the Adhyatma level, it is the Sthula and Sukshma Sharira. And at the Adi Bhautika, Adi Daivika level also, it is all that is there here, Murta and Amurta. So that is shown beautifully. And so Murta and Amurta together become Satya. And the Satyasya Satyam is Brahman. And that Brahman is then, how do we know that Brahman? This is where this most important Neti Neti. Okay, Atataha Adeshaha Neti Neti. So the Neti Neti way of teaching Brahman, this Vakya is there here, most famous. That means this entire Murta Murta Prapancha is negated. That's why the second chapter is looked upon as an Apavada Prakarana. The first chapter in the Upanishad is Adhyaropa, because there Brahman is introduced as the Srishtikarta. Correct? In the fourth Brahmana, the Prajapati and all is introduced. And how the Srishti happened, the different types of Srishti are all talked about in the fourth chapter, fourth Brahmana there. Manushya Srishti, Pashu Srishti, Deva Srishti, all that. But the Mahavakya also is there. Right? 147 is the Pravesha Shruti is there. How this Brahman itself entered after creating this, or after differentiating into this whole creation, Brahman entered it. And then 1410 is the Vidya Sutram. 147 is Vidya Sutram. And again 1410 Aham Brahmasmi is there. And then there is something called Avidya Sutram also is there. And then it discusses later on in the 14 till the end, after 1410, 11 to 16 and all is about how Avidyavan goes about in this Srishti. All that was discussed. And even in the fifth and sixth Brahmana, there was a story how all these organs, they had, like they each one wanted to prove that they are the greatest one, and then finally Prana is the one which wins there. Okay. And the sixth one is more of a summary. So first chapter is about Adhyaropa, and here this Neti Neti is there, and it is Apavada. It actually negates everything as not this, not this. then how do you know this Brahman? If it is not any of these things, means it is not any of the objects. Whatever you know as this is not Brahman, because Brahman is the Swarupa of the very negator. The negator can never be negated. That is yourself. You are the invariable in each and every cognition. Whatever is cognized is all mithya, it comes and goes. Different objects are cognized in different cognitions. But the invariable in all of that is I, or consciousness is, we can say. Correct? So different cognitions means we say part consciousness is, table consciousness is. Like that, you can keep on adding any number of cognitions. In all that, that consciousness is the I, which is the invariable. In fact, the entire knowledge resolves into that consciousness is only. Even if nothing is there to be cognized, consciousness is there always. Correct? Even without being a subject, it is always there. In fact, it is the adhishtanam for both the subject and object. That is the teaching here. And there is no better way of teaching this. Upanishad itself says here. Okay. Anyat param asti. And then this satyasya satyam is explained by this time. Then the fourth Brahmana is the most important Maitreyi Brahmana we saw here, where Atma is shown as the Paramananda Swarupa. And also this important statement, correct? Atmanastu kamaya sarvam priyam bhavati. This was said and shown that Atma is Ananda Swarupa, or source of all Ananda. And this Atma has to be known. Atma vare drashtavyaha, shrotavyaha, mantavyaha, nididhyasitavyaha. The Sakshat sadhana or karana for this Atma Jnanam is Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. That was also mandated here by Yajnavalkya. And then the teaching itself was given. Sarvam yad ayam Atma. This is the main teaching here, correct? All that is here is this Atma alone. Sarvatma Bhava is the teaching. So that you can get rid of your limitations, which are all only superimposed wrong notions, basically. Okay. So the Sarvatma Bhava, Sarvam Yad Ayam Atma, Idam Sarvam Yad Ayam Atma is the main teaching here. And to show that different analogies are also given. The fire analogy is given to show that everything was created from this Brahman alone. Then for sustenance, this Dundubi and Shankanada and Veena, all these different sounds. There is a generic sound and then there are specific sounds, and but the generic sound alone is the basis for all the specific sound also. Like this, for Sthiti, these three were given, and then the salt dissolving into the solution for Laya. Correct? The Saindhava Ghana. And in between, it was also shown that all the things, all knowledge, everything came from this Mahato Bhuta, Mahataha, Mahato Bhutasya Nishvasitam. Like that, it is all just a breath. All the different Vedas, etc., are all only like the breath of this Brahman. This is the Srishti part, in fact. First, the Laya, the Sthiti was talked about. Here, the fire analogy is given. And then this, here, the analogy of the salt is also given. Saindhava, Khilya, Udake, all this for Laya. So from this, what it is shown is Brahman is the Srishti Sthiti Laya Karana of everything. Therefore, from this Karya Karana Prakriya, Karya becomes Mithya, Karana alone is Satyam, and that Satyam is actually appearing as everything. All the names and forms are nothing but appearances in this Satya Vastu, Brahman, which is yourself. Therefore, that Sarvatma Bhava is taught in that manner, correct? So, Idam Sarvam Yadayam Atma is established by showing Brahman is Shrishti Sthiti Laya Karana. So, this was taught, and also the Swarupa of Brahman, which can never be known as an object. Okay, that is something very important, correct? Because when we are trying to know Atma, the self, we are talking about self-knowledge. We are talking as though Atma also is one more object to be known, because throughout our life we have only known things as an object of our knowledge or object of the mind and senses, to be more proper. So everything we have known, we have either known it as an object of our senses, or even if sense organs are not involved, it is still an object in your mind. So by objectifying, we have known everything. In the process, we have taken the subject for granted, or in fact, scientists themselves are confused. They are still discussing whether there is any subject at all. Everything is just matter and all, like that. Some people are arguing very reductionist manner, which is not correct. But there is confusion there, correct? So here, how do we know that which is always the knower? Means you have to know it as the seer of sight, hearer of hearing, like that only, correct? Like Kena Upanishad says, same thing is said here also. Yena idam sarvam vijanati tam kena vijaniyat vijnataram are kena vijaniyat. The one who is the knower, how do you know that knower? That knower cannot be known as an object. The knower has to be known without objectifying. That is the trick here. That is the tricky part. The Atma Jnanam itself is very simple. But the only thing here one has to be clear about is you cannot objectify yourself and know. And you need not objectify yourself also. That is the most important thing. You need not objectify because you are self-existent and self-revealing reality. You are Swaprakashaha, Swatasiddhaha. So you don't have to objectify yourself. You have to only get rid of all the wrong notions about yourself. That is good enough. And that is how you know yourself also. Of course, through the words of the Shruti, we know ourselves, but not as any object. And then finally we saw Madhu Vidya also, where this Dadhyang Atharvanaha taught Ashwini Kumaras. And here again, interdependence is called Madhu, or mutual dependence is called Madhu. And anything which is mutually dependent has to depend on a third independent reality, which is Satyam. All that is mutually dependent, they are all Mithya. That is how it is taught here. And through this again, the Sarvatma Bhava of Atma or Brahman only is taught. And finally, we saw the 16, 17, 18, 19, the summary is given. 16, 17 is called Twashtram Madhu, where this Madhu Vidya itself is talked in the context of a particular Pravargya ritual. But in that only we see how these Ashwins, what all they did to know this. So it is a praise for this Vidya itself. It's a stuti. What all they did to learn this Vidya, so that this Vidya is so much exalted, Utkrishtam. So they went to the extent of beheading the teacher, fixing another horse head, removing it again fixing the human head and all that. And the teacher also was ready to undergo all this beheading because he had agreed to teach them. So this we saw that story. And then Kakshyam Madhu is the actual Madhu Vidya which is coming in this chapter, in this Brahmana, where everything which is mutually dependent is shown as Mithya, and Brahman alone is Satyam, which is independent and which is the Adhisthana for all this Madhu. And here Purusha also was defined as Purishayanat Purushaha, because this Brahman is there. It is the one which gives existence to everything, whether it is the Sukshma Sharira, Sthula Sharira, all names and forms. This Brahman, Atma is there. That is why it is called Purushaha. And also Puranat Purushaha also is there. One who is whole, complete, limitless. So these two things were shown here. And finally, Mahavakya also is there. And beautifully, Brahman is given here as Etad Brahma Apurvam Anaparam Anantaram Abhahyam. So Brahman is that which has no cause. Brahman is that which has no effect also in reality, because all the effects are all of different order of reality. Understand that. They don't really count. So there is nothing before Brahman, there is nothing after Brahman, and there is nothing inside Brahman also. There are no differences, or something different is not there. And there is nothing called outside Brahman also, because it is the very basis of space itself. In fact, these four Lakshanas of Brahman basically reveal that Brahman is free of space-time and all objects also. Because any object can either be, again, Karana or Karya, but Brahman has none of these things. So it is Sajatiya Vijatiya Swagata Veda Rahitaha. There is no difference in Brahman. There is no other belonging to the same category. There is no other category itself. Like cow is there, horse is there, means horse is of some other species, correct? Some other category, Vijati. But there is nothing which is other than Brahman, category wise. And within Brahman also, there is no second Brahman. Cow means you can say 1 cow, 2 cow, 10 cow, 100 cow, 1000 cows and all that. Nothing like that. And within Brahman also, there is no difference. Cow means you have all these parts, correct? But this is a partless whole. So that's what this Apurvam, Anaparam, Abhahyam, Anantaram. Okay. Anantaram, Abhahyam. These four words reveal Brahman as a partless whole. And this Brahman is nothing but this Atma, is yourself. Ayam Atma, Brahma is there here also. So Brhadaranyaka itself has multiple Mahavakyas. Normally this Ayam Atma Brahma is associated with Mandukya Upanishad, but it is there here also. And this Atma itself is called Sarvanubhu iti Anushasanam. And Sarvanubhu means it is the experiencer in each and every Sukshma Sharira. Again here, one particular thing we have to highlight is that when we say it is an experiencer, it is not doing any action or anything like that. That we have to always keep in mind. It is just lighting up. Like even the sun is lighting up this entire creation, and there can be n number of reflections of sun. Like that, this Atma is lighting up all that is there here. All the subject, the objects, everything is actually this Atma alone. So in that context, it is said as Sarvanubhuhu. So you should not confuse that it is actually experiencing like how the mind is experiencing things. Mind has to undergo change. That's what we call vritti. So in the manovritti, this Chaitanyam is manifest. And because of that only, mind itself is sentient. Because of the manifestation of the consciousness in the mental state or mental modification. That manifestation is not really an action. It is like the sun is reflecting, correct? That's what we have to understand. It is not a real action or anything, or sun itself does not undergo any change, correct? When it is reflected in thousands of reflecting media, sun does not undergo any change. That vivarta part, we have to keep it always. Like that, this Atma never undergoes any change, even though it is the experiencer in each and every sentient being. So that's how we have to understand this. That is the teaching, iti anushasanam. All these things we saw, and then the last Brahmana is about Vamsha. Again, to praise this Vidya only, to show that this Vidya has not come from any one person's intellect. So they trace it back, and this whole thing you can chant like Vishnu Sahasranama and all we are chanting like this. These names, if you chant, that itself is purificatory. It is Japartha also, it is there. And also for Stuti, Vidya Stuti, and to show that this Vidya has come from Parameshwara himself. So Brahma, Swayambhu, up to that it is traced back. And this Parameshti is the Virat here. So Virat learned from Hiranyagarbha Brahma, the Brahmaji. How did Brahmaji know? Means Brahmaji knew by himself. That Prajapati comes even in the 1-4. If you go back also, we see how Prajapati knew by himself. But Brahma is a manifestation of all knowledge. Or Hiranyagarbha is really all knowledge. Brahman identifying as all knowledge is Hiranyagarbha. And that's why Brahma has all these 4 heads and all that we say, correct? Representing 4 Vedas, like this. Chaturmukha Brahma. All knowledge. And in that all knowledge, self-knowledge also is there. So, and finally, Brahmane Namaha, that is, we salute this. Here it is Brahman. Like this second chapter ended. And now we are entering the 3rd chapter. And let us see how Bhashyakara is introducing this 3rd chapter. So the 3rd chapter starts like this. Janako ha Vaideha. Om Janako ha Vaideha. So Bhashyakara quotes that. Janako ha Vaideha ityadi Yajnavalkiyam Kandam Arabhyate. So Bhashyakara calls it Yajnavalkiyam Kandam. Because this is associated with Yajnavalkya, or it is called Munikanda, as I told you. And that is how this Yajnavalkiyam Kanda starts. And why is this chapter starting? Why cannot we end with only the first 2 chapters over? Brhadaranyaka is over. No. Because the first 2 chapters were all Agama Pradhana. Bhashyakara will say that. So we'll see that. And this, from now onward, it is Upapatti Pradhana, he will say. So Upapatti Pradhanatvat Atikrantena Madhukandena Samanarthatvepi Sati Na Punaruktata. Madhukandam hi Agama Pradhanam. So what he is saying is, in Madhukanda, the teaching of the Vedas were presented, okay, without giving too much of supporting logic. The teaching itself was presented. But here, there is going to be a lot of discussion. You will see the debate and all that. So, again, this Upapatti here is supporting logic. Of course, it is not logic by itself. It is Shruti Sammata Tarka, we have to say. Tarka or logic also. It is only in keeping with whatever the Shruti's teaching is, and to support that teaching and for us to assimilate it and have certain clarity. Because the Shruti's teaching alone, if we present, still there can be doubts because others are saying something else. There are so many people, those who claim that they are Astika, they also have different views. Then there are Nastika darshanas are also there. They don't accept the Veda itself. So now, how do we know that whatever the Veda says alone is knowledge? First, you have to know what the Veda says. There itself, some confusion is there. Even after understanding that, there are others who will come and say Veda is not really a pramana. You have to go with whatever I say, and I have this logic, that logic, and all that. That is why logic is used for two purposes. One is to show how others are illogical. All other, whatever hypothesis is there, all that you have to show it as illogical without any basis. And then whatever Shruti says, also you give supporting logic. Of course, Shruti is the one which finally reveals that, but it doesn't go against any other established knowledge, because Shruti cannot reveal something which is against some other means of knowledge like Pratyaksha or Anuman. So there also we have to establish whatever Shruti says is really, it is really a unique revelation, not contradicting anything else. So there Upapatti is very important. Through both Agama and Upapatti only, we will have clear knowledge. So Bhashyakara says, Atikrantena madhukandena samanarthatvepi sati na punaruktata. Means what? Whatever has already gone is madhukanda. Whatever subject matter was there, whatever was revealed there only is being discussed here also in the 3rd and 4th chapters. So Samanartha is there. The subject matter is the same. But even then it is not punaruktata, he says. It is not repetition. Because sometimes punarukti dosha is talked about whenever a grantha or some chapter is introduced. Generally, one Purva Paksha is what? This is already dealt with. Why are you again starting? So we do address this. But in general, in Vedanta, punarukti itself is not a dosha. We don't look upon punarukti as a dosha. This has to be repeated all the time. Repetition is actually a virtue for us. But anyway, he is addressing that. It is not punaruktata, he says. Why? Because in Madhukanda, Agama Pradhanam, he says, whatever was revealed straight away, okay, without too much of a supporting logic. But now, this particular Kanda is Upapatti Pradhana is there. All supporting logic is presented. So he says that Agamopapattihi Atmaikatva Prakashanaya Pravrite Shaknutaha Karatala Gata Bilvam Iva Darshayitum. So here he gives another analogy, Karatala Gata Bilvam. Normally we say Hasta Amalakam Iva or Karatala Amalakam Iva. We use the gooseberry or amla, correct? In Tamil we say Ullangani Nellikani. But here Bhashyakara uses Bilva fruit. Or I am happy that I am seeing Bilva here because I studied in Banaras, where Bilva, this bale juice is very popular. We used to go to Asi Ghat in summer particularly. The Kashi Bilva is a special variety of Bilva tree. Its fruit also tastes different and nice. And they make juice. And you can drink that right in the morning. We used to go and drink that. And it is supposed to be very cooling in the hot summer. Anyway, so here Bhashyakara gives that it is so to have such clarity, like having the bilva fruit in your hand, how clearly you cognize that, like that you cognize the Atma Ekatva, that Atma alone is the reality here, that is so clear. And how you can know that with such clarity? Only by understanding what the Veda is revealing and also using supporting logic to understand and assimilate that, so that all doubts are also cleared. So he says agamopapatti is the dual case. Okay. So with this agama and upapatti only, this Atma Ekatva Prakashanaya Pravritte. So whoever has started to reveal this Atma Ekatvam, they can reveal it. It is possible for them to reveal it, like as though showing the bilva fruit in one's hand with such clarity. And how you can say both Agama and Upapatti are required means he is quoting the Shruti again. Shrotavyo Mantavyaha iti hi uktam. So 2-4 Maitreya Brahmana only we saw Atma Vare Drashtavyaha Shrotavyaha Mantavyaha. So he is quoting that. Mantavyaha is for Upapatti. So Tasmad Agamarthasya eva Pariksha Purvakam Nirdharanaya Yajnavalkiyam Kandam Upapatti Pradhanam Arabhyate. So he summarizes it. Therefore, he says whatever has been presented in the first 2 chapters, in the as whatever the revelation of the Veda, Agamartha, the subject matter of the Veda, then again you examine that and then ascertain. Okay, with analysis and examination, you further ascertain it with all supporting logic that this is the knowledge. Okay, so you understand it with clarity without any doubts. So that is why this Yajnavalkiyam Kandam Upapatti Pradhanam, so which is mainly having supporting logic, that is being started, the Yajnavalkiyam Kandam. And in this, initially there is a story. I already told you, correct? Janaka is conducting a yajna, and all the different brahmanas are all there, scholars are there, great people are there. Amongst them, he wants to know who is the greatest. So he is ready to give 1,000 cows, not just the cows. Cows themselves are very healthy and milk yielding and all that we have to assume. It is not like in Kathopanishad, Pitodakaha, Jagdhatrinaha, Dugdhadohaha, Nirindriyaha, Anandavai Namate Lokaha, like that it comes there. In Kathopanishad also, the Vishwajit Yajna is done, and then whoever is the Yajamana, the Vajashravas, he is giving dana, but all the cows are all what? Pita Udaka means they are not even able to drink water anymore. Already they have drunk whatever water they can drink. They are not even in a state where they can drink water properly. They are very old. Jagdhatrina means again they have eaten all the grass. They are not even able, even if you give the grass, they are not able to eat. That is their state. Dugdha doha means already all the milk is gone. You cannot milk anymore. And even their whatever their senses, whatever their indriyas are all not functioning properly. They are not even able to see properly. Such cows you should not give. In fact, if you give, then you will go to only Naraka Loka and all that. That is said in the Upanishad itself. That is in fact, the fear of Nachiketas in that story. So he goes and says his father, you are giving such cows, what is the use? Instead, you give me. At least I will be of some use to whoever is is taking the dhanam. You give me as dhanam and all that. That is that story. Anyway, here in this story, Yajnavalkya is giving good cows, all milkable, healthy, and also he is also tying gold to their horns. Okay, gold pieces. So a lot of wealth he is ready to give to whoever is the best scholar. So what is the tatparya of this Akhyayika or the story? That also Bhashyakara wants to introduce here. So he says here, Akhyayika tu Vijnana Stutyartha. So one is that, see, the king is ready to give so much money to learn this. That means it is very, very valuable, correct? very utkrishta, exalted knowledge. So it is a stuti of the jnana. This particular vidya, jnanam, atma jnanam, it is a praise. And also upaya vidhipara. Upaya vidhipara means what? How do you actually gain this knowledge? So there is a subhashita in Sanskritam. In fact, Anandagiri quotes that subhashita. So the subhashita says what? You have to gain vidya either by doing sushrusha or seva, correct? Even in Gita it is there. Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. So seva, you have to go and do seva, sushrusha. Guru sushrusha is one way you can gain knowledge. Guru will teach you. Or you give dana. You give lot of dhana. Enough money you give, wealth, which is like in abundance also you give. That is one way. Or vidyaya vidya, they say. You teach something and you learn something else in return. In fact, I did that when I first went to US in the 90s. I learned Carnatic music for 6 months, vocals, from a very good Carnatic musician. She is from a good lineage, okay. But her children were studying in 11th standard, I think, or 12th standard, 12th high school they were in, and I used to teach them math, science, etc. So I used to conduct tuition for the children, and she used to teach me Carnatic music. So like this, vidyaya vidya, also you can learn. There is no fourth way. Like this, there is a subhashita is there. Okay, what is that subhashita? Guru sushrushaya vidya pushkalena dhanena va athava vidyaya vidya saturtho nopalabhyate. Like this, there is a subhashita is there. So this is how you can learn something. So here this dhana or dana, dhanam is given as dhanam here. So that is one of the most well-known upaya or way to gain knowledge. So prasiddhaha hi upayaha vidvadbihi shastreshu cha drishtaha danam. So by anyone knowledgeable person, and even it has been shown in the Shastra also, even in the Ajatashatru Brahmana we saw, correct? He gave him 1,000 gold coins. Just for saying, I will teach you Brahmate Bravani, that's all he said. The Balaki only said that much. He didn't even start teaching. For saying that only he was given 1,000 gold coins. So like that here also we see that Janaka is ready to give a lot of wealth as dhanam. And in return he wants to know. He wants to gain knowledge. So dhanam is one of the most popular ways of gaining knowledge. Dhanena hi upamante praninaha. So all the beings are satisfied, are made happy, or they become pleased with whatever you receive as dana. And here what? Here he is giving a lot of gold and all that, correct? Prabhutam hiranyam go sahasra danam cha iha upalabhyate. And here he is giving 1,000 cows with lot of gold also tied to their horns. So that is being shown here. So dana is being shown as an upaya for gaining knowledge. Although further he says, Tasmat anya parenapi shastrena vidya prapti upayadana pradarsanartha akyayika arabdha. So anya parenapi means what? Even though something else also is being shown by this akyayika, but it is also showing that for gaining vidya jnanam, one of the ways means is to give dhanam, to show that this story is being started, and other things are also discussed that we will see, but the starting is to show that. And apicha tat Vidya Sanyogaha Taischa Saha Vada Karanam Vidya Prapti Upayaha Nyaya Vidyayam Drishtaha. So Bhashyakara says Tad Vidyaha, you have to see here. Vidya here, Tad Vidya means what? In whichever tasmin, in whichever subject matter you want to gain Vidya, and that Vidya is there with whom? That person is called Tad Vidyaha here. Okay. And Tadvidya Sanyogaha means the association with the person who has the knowledge which you want to gain. And also with them, associating means what? With them you do vada, you have conversation with them. Vada or samvada means basically you want to know the truth. So here different types of conversations are also possible, or debates are possible. Typically in our Indian tradition, vada means you are interested in knowing the truth. You analyze and try to establish what is the truth. Then there is something called Jalpa also. In Jalpa, you are not only interested in establishing the truth, but you establish the truth by negating all other views, and then you establish yours as the truth. Okay, so you do Khandana of Paramata and then establish Swamata. That is called Jalpa. Then there is one more thing called Vitanda. Vitanda means what? You don't want to establish your own position also. You are only interested in showing the other person is wrong. Okay, that is called Vitanda. So even in the Vedanta text, there are different types of texts are there. Even here, in fact, the third chapter is supposed to be Jalpa, because here Yajnavalkya is arguing and showing what others are saying and all is wrong, and why what he says is correct, etc. So Jalpa is there. And then fourth is mostly Vada or Samvada, where the truth, you only establish the truth without actually negating what others are saying. So this Vitanda, Jalpa, Vada and all is there. So here Vada Karanam means what? Basically you have a conversation and try to establish the truth, what is true you want to understand. So by doing all this conversation only with the people who already have this knowledge, you associate with them and you have conversations with them. That's how you gain this knowledge. That is the means for gaining any Vidya. Vidya Prapti Upaya is that the means for gaining knowledge. And this is known in Nyaya Vidyayam Drishtaha, means Nyaya. Here also in the Vedanta also. Okay. It is well known. And Tacha Asmin Adhyaye Prabalyena Pradarsyate. So this is now shown very importantly. Correct? With Prabala. Prabalyena, with a lot of force. Forcefully it is being reiterated or shown. Prabalyena Pradarsyate. And it is also very well known. Bhashyakara says, Pratyakshacha Vidyat Sanyoge Prajna Vriddhihi. So your knowledge grows, or knowledge becomes strong, clear in the presence of others who know it. Correct? That is why Satsanga is so much important. We talk about Satsanga. In fact, knowledge itself is talked about as being gained in 4 different ways. You gain it in the class only 25%, it is said. Correct? When you attend the class, when you learn what the Guru and Shastra is saying, you learn only 25%. Then 25% you learn by having discussion with other students. Correct? Other students, each one may have their own some doubts and all that. Each one brings a different perspective. And looking at all that, and again, you gain certain clarity, correct, by analyzing all the questions which are brought about by all the sahapatis, those who are with you. Then one fourth is known by negating all other views and all that. And last to 25% in time, because it takes time for you to assimilate. Even though you gain an insight, that insight has to strengthen. It has to be repeated. It has to be repeatedly recollected. So it takes time. So 25% each, like this, it is said. But anyway, so Vidvat Sanyoga, if you associate with the Vidwan, Satsanga is there, means Prajna Vriddhihi, knowledge grows, knowledge strengthens. This is well known. It is the experience of everyone. So that is Pratyaksha, he says. Tasmat, therefore what? Vidya Prapti Upaya Pradarsanartha Eva Akhyayika. So this Akhyayika, this story is to show that the means for gaining this Vidya. So what is the story here? Okay. Janakkoha Vaideha Bahudakshinena Yajnena Ije. So this Janaka is Vaideha because he is the king of Videha. Even Sita is called Vaidehi, correct? So Videha Desha, and he is Vaideha, and he did the yajna with Bahu Dakshina, means he gave lot of dana, Dakshina to all the people who were involved in that yajna. So Bahu Dakshinena Yajnena Ije means Ajayate, means he did, it's past tense. He did this yajna. Ayajat. Tatraha Kuru Panchalanam Brahmanaha Abhisameta Babuvuhu. So there, all the Brahmanas in the Kuru and Panchala region, correct? Kuru region is where all the Kauravas, Hastinapura and all that we talk about, modern Delhi, that area is Kuru area. And Panchala area is where Panchali came from. So Kuru Panchala area, North India. So all the Brahmanas from there, they had assembled there in that yajna which Janaka did. And then in that yajna, then Janaka thinks, okay, what he thinks? Tasya Janakasya Vaidehasya Vijijñasa Babhuva. Then he had a thought, he had a desire to know something suddenly. During that time, this Janaka Vaideha, he had a desire to know. Vijijñasa was there. What is the desire? Kasvid Yesham Brahmananam Anuchanatamaha iti. Anuchanatama is a very interesting word. Anuchanaha means one who knows the Veda, the Vedanga, everything associated with the we have this Ashtadasha Vidyasthana and all that, correct? So one who knows all these different Shastras, at least the Veda and Vedanga also, not just chanting. Nowadays, Vaidika means they only know chanting. Many of them don't know even proper Sanskrit, or they don't know the meaning. Although the traditional Veda Adhyayanam means 6 months only you learn chanting, 6 months you are supposed to learn the other Angas. That's why we have this Upakarma. But that is not followed anymore. Or they do something, but not completely. Chanting they learn properly in Veda Adhyayanam nowadays. But Anuchana means here one who has learned all the Vedas and their Veda Angas also, like Shiksha, Kalpam, Vyakaranam, Niruttam, Chandas, Jyotisham and all we say, correct? All these Angas and Upangas, Upavedas are also there. All these different things they know. But amongst them, Tama means the one who is the best amongst all these scholars. All of them are very well versed in Vedas and Vedangas. But who is the best amongst them? He wanted to know that. So amongst all these people who have assembled, who is the best? And therefore, what did he do? So Anuchatama iti saha gavam sahasram avarurodha. So avarurodha means he actually got all these 1,000 cows and then put them in a in a particular stable, okay, in a shed or whatever stable. He has actually collected all these 1,000 cows and he has stationed them in one place. And he has maybe put a fence and all that so that they don't run away. They are all in one place. And also what? Dasha Dasha Pada Ekaikasyaha Shringayoho Abaddha Babhuhu. So here Pada is actually a unit of measure. It is around 1/3 of an ounce, they say. And Dasha Dasha Pada means what? Ekaikasyaha Shringayoho means 10 padas of gold was tied to the horns of each of these cows. So a lot of money and all these cows are there, and that is the prize or whatever present for the best scholar amongst all of them. And he wants to know who is the best, and then all the debate starts. In fact, how Yajnavalkya gives his entry here, it is very nice. We'll see next week. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.